Well, Larry, welcome back to the pod, man. It's good to have you here.
It was good to be here, Sathiya, and yeah, it's a bummer I can't see you in person like the last
I
time
know.
we hung out, but yeah, it's good to see you.
I know we were hanging out in St. Louis at the Forge, and
Yes.
actually, I'm going to tell a quick story, which will segue nicely into the conversation today. But you were, it was a campfire. I came a little bit late, so I think I came day 3 of the event. It was a 4-day event, so I came day 3, and we had a fire after dinner. And you were bragging on your son in a very humble way. You weren't like, hey, I'm such a great dad or anything like that. But you were just saying like, man, I'm so proud of my son because Ethan really he really just did some really cool, like he really manned up at that event. I think it was really
He
cool to see
did.
him kind of step up. And halfway through, as you're just like kind of shouting out your son in front of these 50 guys, someone was like, "Oh my gosh, Larry, we get it. You're a great dad. Okay, we get it. Just stop it already."
Oh my God.
Um, and anyways, everybody laughed. We were all chuckling. But underneath that, that exclamation, he was obviously just joking around. But I think it's really obvious that you have invested a lot of time and energy into trying to figure out fatherhood. And in your first interview on the show, you shared about how you're 4 years old, you're freaking out on your kids, and you just realize, oh my gosh, like I don't know what I'm doing. I was not prepared for this. And that's what kind of spawned the Dad Edge and all the incredible work you've done. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about maybe just some of the big shifts you've had in fatherhood from when you first launched the Dad Edge as somebody who was literally just starting green, trying to figure it out, maybe trying to even reverse some of the nutty experiences that you had as a child, because you had a biological father who was kind of absent, then you had a stepfather that was very abusive, to where you are now. You got 4 kids, and we talked about the bigs and the littles, right? The older two are the bigs, and they're doing incredible things, and your 2 littles are amazing. What are some of the big shifts that you've made in your whole concept of fatherhood since you started this journey?
Well, I, I'll say this, about like what does Dave Ramsey always say? When people are like, how are you doing? Like, hey Dave, how are
Better
you
than I
doing?
deserve.
Better than I deserve. That's what it is. That's what he says. I was like, what is that? And I'll tell you that is definitely the story of my life. Yes, I've learned some things about fatherhood, but dude, I'll tell you, I'm pleasantly surprised how my kids turned out, being that even though I do this work, how often I still screw up, which is every day. But I'll
Yeah.
tell you, I really want to shine the spotlight on my wife, because that is half of this battle, in my opinion. And yes, we've got great kids, but I'll tell you, like having married, and you're married to a wonderful woman as well. But I think ensuring that you have alignment on parenting, you have alignment on marriage. I honestly think, man, that's like half the battle, because like,
Hmm.
I can only do so much on my own. My wife can only do so much on her own. If we don't have that alignment, like we're really, really, I think, in a bad spot. And that's one of I think the biggest learning things that I had was when I first started this podcast and movement, it was to help dads, which it's still to help dads. But really what I've learned over the past several years is you can be an awesome dad and never ever get alignment with your wife, and that will derail things. But if you can
Huh.
get that alignment with her, right, like really really diving into making decisions from your core values as individuals, but also as a family, also as a married couple. I think that those things are really really critical. So that's one thing, is for sure, is making sure you get alignment with your significant other.
Well, it's cool that you said that because we had a guy on here named Jim Ramos. I don't know if you've connected with Jim at
I love
all.
Jim. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jim, I mean, he shared a really powerful framework about kind of the 4 stages of fatherhood, and how, because obviously it evolves, right, from what's required as a father when they're very young to versus when they're adults, and there's a couple phases in between there. But I asked him, do you have any regrets, or it wasn't quite framed that way, but it was, is there anything that you wish you could have done differently? And his big thing is, he said, I wish I would have been more supportive of my wife in front of my kids,
Yep.
because I think we've all been there. Well, not that I'm there yet, but I know I'll have the temptation of, oh, your mother always makes us do, whatever, whatever, whatever. It's so easy to kind of just slip those things in there. And that was something he said he really had to apologize for. He's had to correct. And that's the beautiful thing about, the way God's designed this life, is we can right so many of these wrongs anyway. But is that what you're talking about with alignment? And then I guess maybe a step further would be like, what else do you need to be aligned on in your marriage to really be successful as raising kids?
Yeah, it's funny. I've interviewed Jim twice. I think I was on his show twice as well. And I think I even remember him sharing that on one of those podcasts. And
Yeah.
I think that that's true. Like I remember growing up, and I did have a stepdad from the time that I was 4 to 10. So those for those 6 years, and I remember those 6 years pretty vividly. And I remember my mom was the one that kind of like, not to down, my stepfather's passed away. So like talking about him in this way, like I know he's not listening to the show or anything like that, but like my stepdad was, I think, your typical definition of like a beta male. Beta male meaning like happy wife, happy life. He did anything and everything to try to please my mom. And it just completely backfired all the time. Cause I think at the end of the day, a woman doesn't want to be married to a man who just wants to be a yes man, people please, and whatever you say, whatever you think, whatever decisions you make is I'm fine with. Like, I don't think a woman
Yeah.
has respect for a man for that long term. So when I was growing up, just get to your question about the alignment, I always remember like I would go and ask for something, permission for something from my dad. And my dad would be like, well, maybe if you and I like rub elbows and we talk really, really nicely to your mom, maybe you and I can convince her of this. Right. So it's like dad and kid on the same team versus mom, or dad or
Mm,
mom and kid against dad. And
mm,
you see that dynamic play out quite a bit. And one thing that my wife and I we've actually have always done this even before Dad Edge, which I'm really, really thankful of, which is it's never me against you ever. And my wife will say
mm,
that back to me. It is us who are aligned, and then we make decisions together. So like
hmm.
for instance, if my son goes, hey, can I do such and such? My first question is, did you ask your mom? And because what I'm trying to uncover right away is, are you trying to get me to say yes when she said no? And
Right.
and some of the like early on, my kids would be like, "Well, she said no." I was like, "That's your answer.
Hmm.
That's your answer, right?" And then if I disagree with it, I won't even tell the kid I disagree with that. I'll be like,
Hmm.
"Let me," or I won't even say, "Let me go talk to her." I'll do that in private. I'll be like, "Well, that's your answer." And I'll just leave it at
Hmm.
that. Now, if I disagree with it, I'm not going to tell my kid. I'll go have a conversation with her and be like, hey, Ethan just asked me to do this. He said you said no to it. Just curious. Like, tell me why, you said
Right.
no to that. And I'll just be curious about it. And then, especially if there's like a really good reason, I'll be like, that's a good reason. Yeah, I'm glad we agreed. Or I'll be like, well, do you think we should let him, or whatever else? And then we'll talk about it. And if she's like, you know what, that's a good point. Yeah, he should be okay. Then let's me and you both go to him and say yes, because it's not going to be
Right.
me going to him, because then it's going to look like, oh, well, you twisted mom's arm, right?
Yes.
So
Right.
I think that alignment is really important. But to agree with Jim, I think it's also really important to show like how vested you are in your wife and how much you love her, respect her, you want to communicate with her, that she is like the first stop, and to honor her, communicate with her, treat her as an active partner in the relationship, and let your kids see that, and vice versa. The moms need to do that too for the dads.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's a really good point, especially the reconciliation piece. Like, it's not you coming back, but you're coming back together, just showing that united front. And I can imagine
Exactly.
that goes a long way. Okay,
Yeah.
so alignment, something that you guys have been very focused on. It sounds like early on, but probably even more focused on now. And maybe for the audience, we should actually spell out, how old are your kids now?
19, 17, 11, and 9.
Right. Okay. So you got the bigs, 19, 17, and then 11 and 9,
Yeah.
and the littles, right? So,
Bigs and
okay.
littles.
Is there anything that you do less of now as a dad that you used to do more of back in
Oh
your
my
early days?
gosh. Yeah. So, and I love doing this now, and it didn't make any sense to me early on. So like guys are fixers, right? Kids come to you with a problem. Anybody you come to me with a problem. I want to fix it, right? My wife comes to me with a problem. I want to fix it. Kids come to me with a problem. I want to fix it. So, I don't do a whole lot of fixing. Actually, I don't do, I do some, but I don't do a lot. I only do the fixing when I'm like, wow, I can tell my kid is totally overwhelmed by this situation or decision they need to make, or just whatever the dynamics of this thing is, and they're really needing some input. And I'll even ask. I'll be like, "This seems pretty serious, and it seems like you're pretty overwhelmed by it. And if I'm reading you right, you might have a tough time thinking through this. So maybe let me ask you some questions, but let me give you some advice on how I would either handle this now or how I would have handled it back then. I do
Mm.
that maybe 20% of the time. Now, what I do is I just simply ask questions, right? And so if my son, here's an example. My son, Ethan, my oldest son, was working full time over the summer at a auto repair shop as he's working his way through paramedic and the firefighter academy. So full time job, also taking on, a big, eating an elephant one bite at a time, trying to be a paramedic and a firefighter. It's a big lift. There's a lot to that.
Yeah.
So he came to me and he's like, Dad, I'm like really overwhelmed because he was still working. It was the end of summer and he was about ready to start. He had just started school and he was working and he was just like, Dad, like, I really don't know how I'm going to balance this. I think I need to just quit. And I was like, quit a full-time job. He was making great money there. And I was like, okay. And there's a part of me that wants to talk him out of quitting. Like that was my solution. But
Mm.
I stepped back from it and I'm like, this is a big thing. Like this is basically he's doing two full-time jobs if he does this, right? So I just started asking him a lot of questions. I started asking him questions like, what is it about, this situation that feels the heaviest to you? Is it, I really don't want to work at this place because I hate it? Or is it the fact that I'm just overwhelmed by the two situations? And he had to think about it because I think at first he was just overwhelmed by the situation, just everything about it. And he's thought about it and he's like, I think it really just, he's like, I love the money that I make and I love working with my hands. I honestly just don't think I can do it unless I work part time. I was like, okay. I was like, if you can do it part time, what do you think a possible solution to that would be? And he kind of thought through it. He's like, well, I can go to my boss and I can ask if there's a part time position. I was like, okay, what if the answer is no? He's like, well, I'm going to find another job. I was like, okay, where can you find another job that you can work less hours but still make about the same amount of money? He's like, I don't know. I was like, well, think of, and I'm sitting here thinking of all these industries where you could. And he's
Mm.
like, I was like, do you have any of your friends who are here locally that work in a job that are making good money that you'd want to hang out with? And he's like, oh man, like my friend Christopher, he's working at Outback right now. He makes killer money there. I was like, is he working part time? He's like, he is. I was like, could you ask him if they're hiring? If that's something you want to do? He's like, I would do that. I was like, what's stopping you from asking him? So he went to his boss, asked for a part time position. The answer was no. He said, there's only full time here. He's like, I have to put in my 2 weeks then. Talked to his friend, got a job at Outback. He's now working part time. He's working great money and he's able to balance everything. But I so
Mm.
badly, as a dad, there's a part of me that's like, just tough it out, man. Like this is just life. And it probably would have overwhelmed him. Or if I would have told him, well, just quit and we'll take care of you, like, and just focus on school, that probably wouldn't have been the best balance either. But through those questions, you really get to elicit a lot of really great information and steer him in a direction where you want it to go.
Man, it's really powerful. Did you have to learn that? Like, and how did you, because you, like you said, the inherent response of most guys is to fix. You mentioned something really critical in there, even though it was really subtle, which is that you took a step back. How do you create that space to take a step back, or I don't know, but did you have to just correct yourself halfway through? You realize I'm fixing, and you start asking questions instead, and does it eventually become more second nature? Like, what did that process look like?
So one of my business partners, his name is Jason McKenzie. He's one of my co-coaches in a program we have called the Dad Edge Business Owner Brotherhood. So it's all business owners in there. He's one of the coaches, but he said something I think that really, every week we get to learn something new, right? In masterminds, whether you're facilitating them or you're a member. And
True.
I'll never forget when Jason said this thing. He said, "What I have learned most about a coach is that I am in no position to tell anyone what is right for them. My job is
Mm.
to ask them questions so they figure out what's right for them." And I'm like,
Hmm.
oh my, like my head exploded. And I'm sitting there thinking like, yeah, that's great for parenting, but it's also great for every situation, right?
So true.
It is, because what I think might be the right move might be absolutely the wrong move. So, like, to answer your question, it's twofold. Number one, it's I keep that in front of mind. Like, before I give anybody advice, I don't care how qualified somebody is. I'm not in a position to tell somebody this is what's right for you. Right. But my job is to ask them questions so they can figure it out. So, like, I like to keep that in front of mind. The second reason I like doing that is because This one I had to really learn. I actually really love watching my kids think through their stuff. Like
Hmm.
I really love watching them make critical decisions in their
Yeah.
mind as they have conversations with me, because that way I'm actually, it sounds crazy. Maybe this point will hit it hard. Okay. Because I think maybe this is what guys need to hear. If I tell him what I think he needs to hear, that's selfish. It's selfish because like I
Hmm.
want to be the one to help him. I want to be the one to fix it. And I want the one who wants the recognition for fixing it. Like I want to be like, Dad, thank you so much for helping me. It was awesome. Right. That's what a lot of dads want.
Hmm.
But what I am really fascinated by is I want to see how my son thinks,
Hmm.
right? Thinks through situations, because that is what's actually going to serve him as an adult. And if I can train him by me asking him questions so that when he's 30 years old, he's asking himself these questions to figure out what's right versus being so overwhelmed by like, I'm just paralyzed. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's a bit of a long-term game there as well, right?
100%.
Because at some point your kids are no longer under your leadership, and whatever you've imparted to them is what they're going to take into the real world. So you're trying to build that skill, that critical thinking, and there's a huge piece of confidence, I think, as well. Not that, again, I'm not that parent yet. My kids aren't even close to that stage, but when I've had leaders like that in my life who kind of believe like, hey, you have it within you, and I'm just going to ask questions and pull it out, I always feel better about myself afterwards. I feel more confident. I feel empowered. And the next time I run into a similar problem, I'm probably less likely to go nag that person because they built in me an ability to think through it myself.
That's right. Yeah. And I think that is what adult kids, they look back and they're like, my dad taught me this, my
Yeah,
dad taught me that, right? And you hear these
right.
stories and you're like, that must have been kind of tough for that dad to teach that. It takes extra work and it takes extra brain power and extra thinking to not just swoop in and solve the problem, but to have, a curious conversation where we explore options, right? And
Mm.
basically the only thing that I'm doing is triggering his brain to think from an objective point of view. That's really all I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah, it's really really smart. Going back to the alignment thing, you mentioned how you would handle a situation if maybe your wife Jess said yes to something that you hear and you go, I'm not sure about that. So you have the private conversation, you guys come to an agreement, and if there is a correction or an adjustment, you're coming back on a united front. um, the alignment word, I'm just thinking it could throw people off because no two people are aligned on everything.
True.
But there's such a thing as being aligned on, the critical elements. What should a dad do if um, I'm actually thinking even of a couple conversations I had at the Forge, just around breakfast or lunch or whatever it was, where the guy was sharing how he and his wife are not they don't see eye to eye on spanking a child or whatever it might be, discipline or educational expectations or whatever else. How do you work through that effectively when you're not seeing eye to eye with your partner?
I think I mean, yeah, you're right. That's a dynamic that everybody has to deal with. And I think that there are going to be things that you don't have alignment on. But I do think that there are things that you can compromise on,
Mm,
as a couple. So like I'll give you an example. Um one of the most important alignment factor in our family is our faith. Like we are aligned, like we are a family, a faith-based family. We
mm,
openly pray together. We openly talk about God together. We go to church together every Sunday. Like that is our thing, right? Now, what you're talking about is like this might be a good example. I was raised Catholic. I've always been Catholic, and growing up, there's a lot of Catholics out there that are passionate, but I would say there's a lot of Catholics that aren't. It's kind of like our reputation. Like we kind of like check, we drink 6 days out of the week and then we go to confession and church on Sunday and we tithe and we're all good again. And
right.
I kind of, I don't really like that reputation because there are Catholics out there that, like myself, that we really embrace it. We really, really do. And in fact, I look at my Catholic faith as this is a channel and a way for me to have a relationship with God. Right. And for
Mm,
me, it's not so, I know it sounds kind of crazy. It's not very important for me to be Catholic, even though I do like being Catholic. I could go to a non-denominational church probably tomorrow and still have a phenomenal relationship with Christ. I'd still pray just as much. I'd still be just as passionate about it. I'd still read my Bible every day. For my wife, it was insanely important for us to be Catholic. And I fought
Mm.
that a little bit. In fact, I think this was about 5 years ago. It was an alignment that I think you're kind of talking about. And my wife and I really, really talked about this. And we went church shopping. Like we went to several different churches about 5 years ago to decide what our new church home was going to be. And the whole family was going to have a say in this.
Mm.
And I was really, really shocked at what came back. So I took them to all these non-denominational churches. I thought they were awesome, especially one of them. I was like, this is it. This is great. I love this place. Then after a few weeks, we checked out a couple Catholic churches. Then we came back to our family and I was like, all right, guys, so we need to make a decision on our church home. What are you guys feeling? And here's the funny thing, Sathiya. I seriously thought all four of my boys would have my back and be like, let's go to this non-denominational church. They got better donuts. They have a good band. The pastor's really fun to listen to. Like the child care is awesome. Everybody but me wants to stay Catholic. I was shocked, especially for a kid. Kids going to a Catholic mass, they're like,
True.
it's like watching the paint dry, right? And all of them said Catholic. And I was stunned. I was like, really? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, why? Like, why do you guys want to become Catholic? And the reasons were undeniable. And the
Mm.
reasons came back to basically the theme was this. Every single person in my family felt the presence of the Holy Spirit when we were in Catholic Mass. And I was like,
Mm.
really? Like, tell me about that. And they're like, there's something about the flow of the Mass, the music, and there's just something that just feels peaceful there. And at the other churches, we don't feel that. Now, collectively, individually, they all had different feedback, but that was basically the biggest common theme that was pulled out of that. And I looked at my wife, and my wife and I had a conversation that night, and I was like, she's like, what are you thinking? I was like, this is hard. It's really, really hard for me. At the same time, I don't mind being Catholic. My relationship is with God. So my alignment goes back to exactly what we were talking about,
Mm.
which whatever church we go to doesn't matter as much to me as long as we still have the power of our faith as a family. We're still connected to our faith. We still pray together. We still talk about it. And we do it more now than we did ever before, which tells me we made the right decision. But at first, getting that alignment was tough. And I was the one who had to compromise.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I think you have to have depth of conversation. You have to come to conversations like this where if your wife has a belief on a certain parenting, like call it spanking, call it like, I don't know, kids don't get devices till they're 18 years old. I don't know, whatever it is, right?
Yep.
Even if you don't agree with it, like I wouldn't agree with those two things, but I would come to that conversation really, really wanting to know from my wife, tell me exactly why you feel this way. Because
Right.
quite frankly, she'll probably bring up some points that I'm like, oh dang, I didn't think about that. Right. But then
Yeah.
she's also very receptive though to my side and me giving my reasoning. And I think that portion of the conversation is really, really key. And to be honest, if you want to have a better chance of compromise, you have to come to both people have to come to the conversation with, let me genuinely, and I really, really highlight and underline genuinely, let me really understand what your reasoning is and why this is so important to you without the agenda of like, whatever you say, I just want to get you to my side. Right. Like
Mm.
literally being completely open to like, let me hear everything you have to say about this and why you believe that this is the way we should go. And then really
Yeah.
considering that. Right. But the other person has to be receptive to that too.
It's such a good example of being a coach just in a home environment, because it's exactly what you said, right? You're trying to come with an open mind, you're asking questions, and you're really just trying to draw out the truth from everybody. And then, and I mean, in this case, as a family, you chose to operate as a cohesive unit. So then you'll kind of have to come to a conclusion together. But it's really powerful. It's a really, really good example. So your book is The Pursuit of Legendary Fatherhood. Is that right?
Yes,
Did I get the
sir.
title right? Yeah.
Yes, sir. And for any of you
Um,
guys watching us on YouTube, there you
Hey,
go.
let's go look at that thing of beauty. You told me before that the response has been way bigger than anything you could have imagined already. I think when we're recording here, it's been out for a week or two. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So I have some theories on why your book's doing so well. Number one, your messaging is really is very incredible, and I think anyone who's even listened to this part of the interview so far can tell like this is not, you don't have good ideas. Like you're really walking the walk, and you practice what you preach. So I think you've built up really a lot of loyalty rather. I do think fathers are very unaddressed in our society today as well, and the amount of quality resources for fathers, I think especially faith-based fathers, that's still practical and calls to a higher standard is just very rare. And I think you've built something really special here. I'd love to hear your heart behind it though. Like what, you've been running the dad edge for a long time. Do you ever fall into like am I really going to write another book about fatherhood? What inspired this one and how did it all come to be?
Well, you're a faith-based guy, so I do have a story behind this book if you want to hear it.
Oh yeah, I
How,
do. Especially with that setup.
yeah, how it came about. So the funny thing about this, I wrote this book back in 2022.
Ah.
The book, the cover, everything was done. And I have added to it, obviously, over the years because there's just nuanced information. So I have added to it over the years. But this book was supposed to release September 16th. September, I think it was the same day, September 16th, 2022. And the publisher that I went through went bankrupt. And I found that out 6 weeks before my launch date. Like it was crazy. I met this publisher at a
Sheesh.
speaking event. He heard me speak. I was talking about this book, met him there. Also, kind of a really quick funny story that the CEO, the owner of this publishing company, it was a pretty big publishing company too, wasn't married and didn't have kids. And this is what I think you'll find funny. So after I got done speaking, he's like, man, I loved your talk. Like, I really loved your talk. He's like, and you got this book coming out? I was like, yeah. He's like, do you have a publisher? I was like, no, I was going to self-publish. He's like, I would love to publish this. I have a publishing company. And it was a big one. I mean, it was called Entrepreneurial Press. There was a lot of like pro athletes and stuff like that who did publishing through him. So it was legit publishing. I didn't think it was going to go bankrupt, but he pulls me aside. He's like, what's the title again? I was like, Pursuit of Legendary Fatherhood. And he looked at me and he goes, seems like a long title. Why not just call it Legendary Fatherhood? I didn't even know the guy, and I smiled and I go, "You're not a dad, are you?" And he goes, "No." He's in his 40s. He's like, "No," and I'm not even married. I was like, "Well, then you would know that there's no such thing as legendary fatherhood. There's only the pursuit of it." Like so, like no one ever gets to the top of the mountain and says, "Look how awesome I am." There's only one perfect man that walked the earth, and you and I are not him. So anyway, I went through him. He edited it, had his team design it, and I got to tell you, they crushed it on this cover. They really, really did. But he went bankrupt, and I'm like, okay, now what? And he's like, well, I can sign the rights of your book back over to you, or I can help you self-publish. I was like, I'll just take the rights back. I've always wanted to go through a publisher anyway. So I
Hmm.
hired an agent, and she read the book. She's like, I love it. I'd love to rep it. And she'd been in the business for 40 years. And she's like, this is a killer book. She's like, I would love to take this to Morehouse. I would love to take this to Random House, Penguin, all of them. So she did. Morehouse answered, called a meeting with us, and it was not a meeting I expected. And you're a faith-based guy, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners are too, so you'll appreciate this. Met with them, and they're like, we love your book. We like to publish it, but not right now. We want you to write another one. And I'm like, what? Like, I was like, and I'm sorry, this is in 2023.
Okay.
And so it was supposed to come out in 2023. And I was like, you want me to write another book? And they're like, yeah, we want you to write another book called Spirit of Fatherhood, a faith-based Christian approach to fatherhood. Um, we just launched a book called The Beauty of Motherhood. It's a faith-based approach to motherhood, and the book is killing it. And we want one for a
Hmm.
father, and we want you to do it. And I was like, I laughed, and I was like, you got the wrong guy. I was like, I am not worthy. I am not qualified. I don't even know where I'd start. I'm new to my faith. I'm new to being really, really entrenched in my faith. And they smiled. There's three people on the call. We're like, we know. We've been listening to your podcast. That's why we want you to write it, because we think you can write this book from not from a
Hmm.
pulpit, but from the trenches with another guy who
Wow.
really just doesn't understand his faith yet. And then you could write a book like that. And I was like, I can do that. I was like, when do you, and this is like August of 2023. I was like, when do you need it? And they're like, we want to launch it next year for Father's Day in 2024. I was like,
Oh
awesome. So I have
wow.
like, what,
No
6 months
pressure.
to write it? And they're like, you actually have 11 weeks. And I'm like, I literally looked at them like that. I was like, 11 weeks? Are you serious? 11 weeks? So it took me a year to write this. So I told them no. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I got off a call with
Wow.
them. My agent called me back. She's in her 60s. So she's like my mom. And she's like, sweetheart, say yes to this. And I'm like, I can't. I was like, I'm not. She's like, just say yes to it. You'll do just fine. So I did. I wrote the book in 10 weeks, not 11. I couldn't believe I belted the thing out. And then I published it. And they published it last year, Spirit of Fatherhood. And then they, in my contract, they're like, you cannot publish Pursuit of Legendary Fatherhood for at least a year. And I'm like, okay. So I had to sit on another year. And so
Wow.
in the meantime, I wrote more in it, which was fine, but I knew I was
Yeah.
going to publish it this year. But that, so Pursuit actually led me to another book, which is now
Right.
Pursuit's out now. So that's how it went down.
Oh, that's wild. I know
Yeah.
parts of that story, but I didn't know the story in the fullness. So this thing's been like stewing for a couple of years. What parts did you add?
So I just added some things. So the book is divided up into 4 parts. The first part is called The Drift. I'm happy to talk about that. That's been like the thing that podcasters really want me to talk about. The second part is husband. Third part is father. And the fourth part is leader.
Okay.
But yeah, I added some things in marriage. I added a little bit more things into leadership in the book. But this book, like to answer your question, this really came from like a deep place. I mean, so did Spirit of Fatherhood, but I wanted a book that basically encapsulated everything that we've learned about those 4 topics in the past 10 years. And that's what I put
Hmm.
in this book.
Wow. Okay, tell me more about the pursuit and why there's no such thing as being a legendary father, but it's obviously something we constantly strive towards.
I think fatherhood is one of those things where, like, Sathiya, have you ever done martial arts?
I actually haven't.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So I didn't know this, but I did martial arts for years into my adult life and everything. I was doing it even into my 30s. And I'll never forget this. I've done 3 different styles of martial arts, and every single instructor has said the exact same thing. When you get your black belt, that's the beginning of your training. And you're like, what? And they're like,
Hmm.
yeah, like think about it. Everything leading up to black belt is the black belt knowledge, but you refine it at the black belt level. So it's actually the beginning of your training. It's crazy. And I look at fatherhood as the exact same thing, because as soon as you have your arms wrapped around the white belt stage, which is like baby and toddler stage, well, now you're in yellow belt stage, and now you're in the toddler adolescent stage, right? So it does, and then you get to teenage years, there's different complexities when the kids are older in your marriage. There's different complexities as an older dad. Like I definitely feel like fatherhood is much like martial arts. So as soon as you have your arms wrapped around the stage you're in, you're like, all right, I think I got this. And you're hit with something new and you're like, I don't have this. I'm starting all over again. So I got to pursue this next stage. So like, when I first started Dad Edge, my oldest was 9. Well, now he's an adult child. He's 19 going on 20. So
Wow.
the changes and the pursuit and the growth and the things I've had to learn about raising an adult son and a teenage son is much different when he was 5 and 9
Hmm.
and 12, right? So the pursuit is exactly that. No matter what stage you're at, you have to be ready for the next one, because it's coming,
Hmm.
right? And the pursuit is getting in front of that next stage so you learn it, so you don't feel like you're always behind.
Huh. So how do you do that?
Yeah, so it's just like martial arts, right? It's just you keep going to class and you keep learning the next thing. You keep learning the next skill, and you refine, and the skills that you have learned in the past, you refine them, you get better and better and better and better. And then the nuances come, and that, like for instance right now, the dynamics with me and Ethan's relationship now at 19, when he steps out of line, he's currently not paying rent. He lives here. He's going to school, but he's an adult. Like I don't ground him anymore, right? I don't take his phone away from him anymore. It's more like different conversations around like, hey, you just did this. I'm not going to punish you. Here's your real life consequence, which is a totally different conversation, a totally different way of parenting than it was when you've got full control over your kids. So,
Hmm.
every stage there's just something different. And like, so now, like, if you really think about it, I have to get ready for 2 young men who are going to be adult men. I'm also going to, probably in the next 10 years, we're going to enter into like, well, now we have daughter-in-laws, and what does that look like? And then I'm going to have my
Yes.
littles are going to be in the teenage years. I got to be ready for that one too, because they're not going to be doing 9 and 12, 10, 11-year old stuff. They're going to be doing 14 and 17-year-old stuff.
Yeah. So how do you get trained? Like you've never had daughters-in-law before. How are you going to get ready for that?
Well, they have to go through a very meticulous interview process. You know,
Of
they'll
course.
have to pass several different tests, you know. You know, the daughter-in-law thing, like, to be honest with you, I don't really know, but I am getting my feet wet with girlfriends.
There you go. But
That's a
I'm just
whole
picking a random
yeah.
one. But I just mean like, how do you learn about a phase that you haven't experienced before? How do you even know what to do to get ready for it?
This sounds self-serving, but I'm gonna say it. If people want to get, you know, better with their habits of porn, they need to be in a community, right? They need to
Yeah.
be around other men who have the same goals, who want to be in the same conversations, who want to learn the same skills in that area. You teach men how to live a life without porn, right? And
Mhm.
to give fully to their relationships and to their marriages and to their kids. And that takes a certain skill level. When a man is tempted with porn, how are you going to input training to where he can escape that, right? Or overcome that to where he can be better? And parenting is no different. So we've got the Dad Edge Alliance, we got the Dad Edge Boardroom for business owners. That is the school for dads. That's the school
Mm.
for husbands. So if you want to learn, be in conversations with other men who want to learn those things. And in the alliance and in the boardroom, what we do is every single week, every week. Like, so for instance, right now we're in the month of October, and this month's theme is leadership. So we're teaching men leadership skills within marriage. We're teaching them leadership skills within parenting. And really, the last time I looked, you can go learn, like right now, if I want to go learn AI in 30 days and be awesome at AI, I can go pay what, I don't know, $1,000, 2,000, I don't know, a couple $1,000 to be a part of a community to teach me everything I want to know about AI. And at the end of 30 days, I'll be much better with AI than I was 30 days before that. This is no different. I think we perceive it differently because we think that this stuff should come naturally to us, but that's not the
Yeah.
case. So be in community with other men who are learning this stuff. That's how you get ahead of the next stage.
Mm.
That's how you actually make the stage that you're in effective as well.
Man, that's so good. Yeah, it's funny. It actually reminds me when Deep Clean started to grow. When we first started doing Deep Clean and we were running groups, we did cohorts. So, everybody starts at the same time. They run with us for 12 weeks or whatever it might be. And when we added the course element, we did evergreen, so people could pop in and pop out. Whenever they come in and they do their 12 weeks, and everyone starts at different time periods. And I was so scared about doing that. I knew it was the way we were going to scale as a business, but I was nervous about the client experience. And then probably 2 or 3 weeks in, I realized this dynamic you're talking about, that the people who join when they're new, they have people ahead of them to look up to, and the
Exactly.
people that are ahead of them get to crystallize what they're learning by teaching those things to the people that are behind them. So everybody actually wins when you're in those environments. And the alliance that you're talking about, I met, I don't know how many guys there were at the Forge that are in the alliance. I think there was a good chunk of them. um, Dude, they're amazing guys and very, very intentional. And I think that intentionality inside a community is very powerful when you're all there for the common goal, to be a better father or something else. So that makes sense to me. So for you, you have a community, or you're surrounded by people that are, I guess, ahead of you, that have gone through some of these things before, and that's how you're gleaning and learning from them.
I think so. What you just said, I think this point will really, really hit home. Um, so one of our coaches also in the boardroom is a guy by the name of Jake Herbert. If any of your audience members are collegiate or Olympic or high school wrestling fans, they probably know who Jake is. He's like an American legend, and like
Okay.
a lot of people know who Jake is. Jake has been wrestling for 30 years of his life, and he's 37 years old.
Oh,
And
sheesh.
yeah, I think he was a 9-time national champion. He won the silver medal in 2012 and tried to go for the gold in 2016. It didn't happen. That's when he retired. But he spent
Okay.
30 years of his life, and he said, the best coaching advice I ever got out of 30 years in wrestling is this: you need to have three people. And then I'm talking to all men, all people, right? But let's just talk about men, dads, fathers. You need three people in your life. Three. You need a mentor. someone who is showing you the way, the things that are ahead, right? The ones who are teaching you, that's you and that's me, right? The ones who are teaching our clients and our members the way. Then you need that instructor. Then you need a battle buddy. You need someone who you can wrestle with. Like the instructor just taught you this new move, go spar with your partner and work it out, right? So you need someone to work with, right? Or in our sense, have a conversation with. The
Hmm.
third person is there are people behind you that you need to be teaching and helping. That river flows from the instructor, from me and my sparring partner to people who are less experienced than me. Because when we
Hmm.
learn from the instructor, we're learning a new skill. When we spar with our counterparts and our peers, we're refining that skill. And then when we teach it, we lock that skill in even more. Because when we teach it, we learn it even on a higher level. So those three people, they're in your community, they're in my community, they're in colleges, they're in martial arts schools, they're even in the workforce. They're everywhere, right? So
Yeah.
the people teaching us, the people we can battle with, and the people we can teach.
Okay. What does somebody do if they, I'm trying to think of, I don't know which one of those would be which one's the most common that for people to not have? Is it other fathers that are at the same stage or fathers that are ahead? I guess I'm just curious, how do you fill in those gaps if you feel like you maybe don't have one of those people in your life?
I'm going to theorize here, but I would say for most men, I would say for the good majority of men, I'm not going to give a percentage because I don't know, don't have any of them. So
Hmm.
most men live more like this quiet life of isolation. And I'm not saying
Hmm.
that physically we isolate. It's not like we sit in our room and not go anywhere.
Yeah.
Physically, we are surrounded by people all day long. Physically, we have conversations with people all day long, but they're more acquaintance level conversations. And usually it goes like this: Hey man, dude, how you doing? How's work? Oh, it's busy. We're really, really busy at work. A lot of things going on. Dude, how's your wife? How's Jess? Oh, it's great, man. We're doing good. How are the kids? Oh man, they're busy. They're in sports. They're doing this, this, and this. And that's about it. That's about as depth as
Hmm.
we get. We talk about the weather, we talk about politics, the sports team, but never do we say, Hey, Sathiya, me and Jess, I don't know, man. Like, we're just going through like this month right now. I feel like we're spinning in different orbits. We're not really communicating. Like, there's tension. I'm not really sure what's happening. I don't know what's going on. Like, but I see that you and your wife have a good thing going on. Like, what are you guys doing? Like those types of conversations, they don't
Hmm.
happen, and they should happen. And in the alliance, and in I'm sure in deep work, those conversations are the norm. And one thing I love about when guys join the alliance or the boardroom is their first call. They're like, "Holy crap! Like we just dove like right into the deep end of the pool." I'm like, "Yeah, we don't mess around with how's work. We mess
Yeah.
around with how's your marriage? How's the
Yeah.
communication? How much sex are you having? How many date nights are you having? Like what's going on? Tell us everything." Those are
Hmm.
the conversations we're having. And I'm sure you guys are having much different conversations than the rest of the world too.
But no, but it's a fair point, and we do get that response a lot as well when people join our community. A little bit different, but like we hear a lot of, "Oh, I didn't realize there's other people who are like having thoughts like that, or have those kinds of fantasies, or whatever it might be." Like yeah, it's actually it's very liberating to join
So
a community to
liberating.
realize, oh, there's other people going through this as well. Um, okay, drift, husband, father, leader, right? Those are the four sections of the book.
Yeah, man, dude, you got a killer memory. Yeah.
I do, yeah. I can retain information well,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
Um, okay, you said everybody asked you about drift, so people can go listen to you on other podcasts and hear about that. Father's new to me. Give me your Coles notes on father. What are some of the main points you're getting across in that part of the book?
Yeah. So, with fatherhood, I mean, obviously it depends on the age of your kids, right? So, but here's what I'll say about fatherhood. Um, a lot of clients in our membership community and just guys I've worked with, I'm like, well, what do you want? Like, what do you truly want? Like, as it relates to being a father. And here, I'll just share some feedback points, some bullet points that I've heard. And this is where I really want to highlight most men's lives out there. I think most guys would tell you my life is pretty decent, but I feel like if you really get to the heart of a lot of guys, they're like, I feel like I'm leaving a lot on the table. I just do.
Hmm.
And like, if you really peel back those onion layers, and a guy will not admit that until he feels more psychologically safe to tell you that. But if you really get to the heart of like, how are you doing with your marriage? How are you doing with fatherhood? How are you doing in your own mind? How are you doing with the conversations you're having with yourself that nobody else can hear? How's your physical fitness? How's your mental and emotional fitness doing? All of those things. When a man feels safe, they will always admit, usually, things are going pretty good, but I wish I could do a little more, or I wish I could do this, or I just feel like I'm not doing everything I can. And it boils down to two words. I feel like I need to be more intentional and more present. And I've been doing this work long enough to where I don't I don't let a guy off the hook when he tells me that anymore. And what I mean by that is, those are just, what I've learned is, those are just words, right? It's kind of like, I want to be good at baseball. Okay, well, how do you want to be good at baseball? Do you want to go crack a home run? Do you want to be the guy that gets a one hit every time? Do you want to be the guy that pitches the ball? Like, what do you want? But a lot of it boils down, like, how do you want to be better? So when a guy tells me I want to be more intentional and present, like, well, what do you mean by that? How do you want to do it? Like, I don't know. I just want to be there. Well, how do you want to be there? Well, I want to have better conversations with my kid. Okay, great. What do you ask them? Well, I ask them how their day was. Well, what kind of answers do you get? I get terrible answers. I usually get like fine or busy or whatever. Or they just seem annoyed by me and I don't know what to do. And really what that boils down to is, a man doesn't really, we're not really trained. Hey, here's how you go have a conversation with a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
It's not easy, right?
Yeah.
So intentional and present, what does that look like? That means your phone is down. That means you treat your kid like you're out on a date with a woman that you've always wanted to take out and you finally have the opportunity to do it. Like, that's the kind of energy you want to bring to your kid. So
Hmm.
like, when I come to my kid, intentional and present doesn't look like, hey man, how was school? Oh yeah, it was fine. Cool. Like, anything cool happen? Yeah, cool, man. All right. Well, like, what do you got going on tomorrow? Right. And it's just like, we're trying.
Hmm.
Instead, put the phone down. And like, so if I were to teach you to be intentional and present, I would be like this. I'd be like, Sathiya, man, like, dude, tell me about your day, man. What was the best part of your day today? Right. And like, for then to you to talk to me, and then for me to respond like, oh my gosh, dude, are you serious? Like, you got 10 new members in deep clean. Are you serious, dude? You must feel amazing. Like, tell me more about that. How'd you do that? Right. So
Hmm.
like, and I'm not looking at my phone, and I'm not like, eyes are wandering. Like, you are the most important person in the room, period. My
Yeah.
voice communicates that. My energy communicates that. My body language, my eye contact, everything communicates, you are the most important person in the world. Like, that is intention and presence. The questions I ask you, the quality of questions I ask you, not how was your day or what did you learn in school today, getting really in depth into your world and what's going on, and then to me respond in a certain way to validate what you're feeling.
Okay. So anybody who gets your book, they get a couple courses, and the one of the courses that you offer is creating more patience. And it's kind of a theme that I'm hearing in everything that we've talked about today, from how to be a coach at home, right? How to stop being the fixer and actually ask questions, how to be, effective at work or whatever it might be. And I'm hearing it now as you're talking specifically about this area as well. That patience to be present, to not rush through. I'm not just checking in with my kid so that I can say I checked in, but I'm actually being patient. And it means that if I put my phone down and I ask a question and I let him answer it, she might actually go off for a little bit. And that's why I'm here. Like I kind of hear it embedded into everything. What are you doing to cultivate the patience that's required to do some of these things, or even just the discipline to put your phone away and really be enthusiastic in a conversation? How do you cultivate that in a world that is so, on to the next thing and notification driven and everything else?
It's really hard. It's really hard. Patience, I think, you asked about patience. I think it's twofold, right? And I talk about this in the course. There's internal patience with yourself, and then there's external patience with whatever's challenging you in the outside world. I talk about that in the course, because I think that
Hmm.
if you don't address both, you're like, if we just teach people like, hey, here's how you address everything that's stressing you outside of your head, that's only half the battle. Because here's what's happened. When we lose our patience as a dad, whatever our kid, let's talk about kids, whatever the kid just did pissed you off, you want to lose your patience. Well, then you lose patience with yourself, because if
Mm,
you've lost patience with your kid, the talk that you're saying to yourself is usually like, God bless, like I'm a terrible father. I am not a patient father. I can't believe that I reacted that way. I yelled at him or I yelled at her. Like, what the hell's wrong with me? Like, I suck. And that's no patience for ourselves. That's no grace for ourselves, right? So we beat
mm,
ourselves up internally. So if we don't change how we overcome external stressors and things that are testing our patience, we also need to overcome and basically check ourselves and our thoughts and the conversation we're having with ourselves. Because if we're doing something, and I'm not saying let ourselves off the hook and be like, "Oh, you're fine," it's like, be like, you know what, that wasn't the best way I responded. How might I, given the same situation, or if this happens again, what would I do different? Right? It's
mm,
asking ourselves better questions so we learn every single time.
mm.
But to answer your question about like the patience and all that, maybe this will resonate. Um, one of the things that I've had to learn here recently, and like I said, it's the pursuit, right? I'm one of those guys, just like you are, just like probably every other guy. I just want to get to the next thing. I want to go accomplish the next thing, achieve the next thing, get the next thing done. I feel that urgency that everybody feels, right?
Yeah.
But maybe this might help. I actually say this to myself. I'm with my kid. I'm having a conversation. I have the opportunity to listen and watch the most interesting and the best show on the planet of the day. It's not the news. It's not politics. It's not my favorite sports team. It's actually watching this kid talk to me. It's actually listening to him, hearing
Wow.
how he thinks, hearing how he talks. And I get to watch the best show on the planet. And when
Hmm.
you can sit there and be like, hey, man, tell me about the best part of your day, or tell me about something that really, really challenged you today. And then you get like that emotional response and you get that window to their world and you get to see how they think, how they feel, how they talk about it. It's actually really fascinating. It's when you can entrench yourself as this is the coolest show that I get to watch today, or the coolest conversation I get to be in today. The rest of the world and the distractions kind of melt away and you find yourself really locked into that conversation.
Hmm. And I like that reframe. Yeah. 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 It's really, really helpful. Um, what about the leader part of it? Is do you, the drift, husband, father, leader, are those stages that you go through, or they're
Yeah.
just different? They're just different elements.
Just
Okay.
different elements. Yeah. Leader. So there's 10 different leadership aspects that I talk about in the book. But one of them is love your wife so your kids can see it. Kind of like we were talking about with Jim Ramos, right? A lot of people, part of leadership, I think, is leading your kids and showing them what good looks like, right? Just by the way that you're living, not by the way you're teaching, because best lessons the kids live are the best lessons the kids learn is caught, not taught.
Mm-hmm.
So, what a lot of parents will do is we just had a kid, our marriage gets slid on the back burner, and the kids are now the front burner, and the spouse is no longer important, and kids pick up on that. And I think it's a major disservice to your marriage. I think it's a major disservice to the kids. And we just had this conversation with all four of my boys, even the 9-year old and the 11-year old, and I was shocked at what came back. So like I'm really, really big on grossing the kids out every chance I get. And so is my wife. Like I kiss my wife, I hug my wife, I tell her how beautiful she is, I tell her she's the best mom. I do that on purpose because I want my kids to see that.
Hmm.
And I think we have an opportunity to show our kids what a functional relationship looks like by watching me love their mom and their mom love me.
Hmm.
And I think that's a huge miss that a lot of parents have an opportunity, because if you think about it, if you ask any parent, do you want your child to have a successful marriage, a successful intimate relationship with a significant other where they can they know how to communicate, they know how to understand each other, they know how to come to conversations with curiosity, um, or is it going to be disastrous like a lot of people's? And I think we've got this great opportunity to show them what good looks like. And one example of this is, and this is like a leadership thing. My wife and I had a disagreement a few years ago. I'll never forget this. We were out on our deck. We never yell at each other. We never raise our voice, but there was some tension. And my oldest son, Ethan, at the time, I think he was a teenager. He was in his mid teens. he came up to us and he's like, "What are you guys talking about?" And I was like, "Oh, we're just." He's like, "Are you guys arguing?" And I was like, "No, we're just having a disagreement." And he's like, "You guys gonna get divorced?" And I was like, "What?" I was like, "You know what? Have a seat." And he's like, "What?" And I asked my wife, I was like, "Hey, do you mind if he just listens to how we resolve this?" And she's like, "Not at all." He sat down, my wife and I for 10 minutes we went through conflict resolution
Hmm.
and we solved it. And I looked at him and I was like, "Was that a fight?" He's like, I don't I don't know. And I was like, "Was it a disagreement?" He's like, "Yes." And I was like, "What did you notice?" And I was shocked. He goes, "You guys didn't yell at each other." I was like, "Nope, we don't yell at each other." I was like, "What else?" He goes, "You guys didn't call each other names." I was like, "We don't call each other names." I was like, "What else?" And he goes, "You guys were holding hands the whole time." I was like, "We hold hands during conflict resolution." Yeah. I
Hmm.
was like, "So when you want to go punch your brother in the face the next time he makes you mad, maybe you learned a couple things." But I think that that's again, I mean that's an opportunity. It's a lesson that's caught, not taught. So that's one for sure.
Man, but that's so stabilizing for your kids too, right? Like I remember a mentor taught me this when I was long before I was even married, but he said one of the best things you can do for your kids is show affection to your wife because it actually helps them regulate their nervous system. Then they might say like, "Ah, gross," whatever. They actually love it. Like they
They
actually
do.
need it. They feel more secure, right?
They do. And if I could just make one more point on this, because I started to talk about it, and I didn't finish it. And that's, we just had a conversation about this with my kids a couple weeks ago. And even my 9, 11-year-old, I was shocked at what they said. I was like, "Hey, what do you guys like when you see me and mom love each other, and that we love each other? How does that make you feel?" And my 19-year-old was like, "Pretty awesome. I like it." My 17-year-old was like, "It's cool," which means he likes it. But here's what my 11-year-old said. And my 9-year-old, I think he said something like, "I like it." But my 11-year-old said this. He goes, "It makes our house feel warm and cozy." And I was like,
Wow.
so I think that was his way of saying, I feel really safe. The fact that
Yeah.
knowing that you guys love each other. And you're right. That's, kids feel safe when they know mom and dad are solid.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I can remember my parents didn't argue a lot growing up, but anytime I heard them arguing, instantly felt like that coil, like
Yes.
the lockup. So, man, it's so good. I just like picking your brain about fatherhood, dude. That's really helpful for me. And you're that one third that's ahead. So it's fun to kind of just to like glean and hear the way you talk about all this. I really recommend the book. Best place for people to get the book and find out more about the dad edge if they want that, Larry.
Yeah, sure. So there's two places they can find the book. One I'm going to steer you to a little more because I think there's an incentive behind it. So we right before the book came out, about 7 weeks before launch, on September 16th, we did a pre-order, and I didn't know if people wanted to pre-order or not, but I thought we'd offer it. And what I did with the pre-orders is I'm offering that Creating More Patience course along with Creating Extraordinary Marriage course. The Creating More Patience course will teach you 6 skills in 45 minutes on how to be a more patient father. It talks about some of the things we talked about today. And then the marriage, I put a lot of information in the book that I also put in that course. So if you pre-order the book, it's $28, but you'll get both of those courses, and each one of those courses are $497 a piece. So it's $1,000. You'll get $1,000 in courses if you pre-order the book. If you go to thedadedge.com/legendary book, or if you don't want those courses, you can pay for it at Amazon if you want. You can buy it off Amazon, but if you want a signed copy with 2 courses, you can go to the pre-launch. I'm going to have that landing page up for the rest of 2025 because people have really loved it.
That's awesome. Yeah, so we'll put that link in the show notes for sure. Larry, thanks for your time, man. This is great having you back on.
Thank you so much, man. This is awesome. And I got to tell you, the work that you're doing, and I just want to share this with your audience, so important. If any of you guys listen to Sathiya and you're not a part of his Deep Clean program, get in it. I gave up porn years ago, and I can tell you, best decision I ever made for
Mm,
for my sex life with my wife. It just made it that much better, and it made
yeah,
our relationship better.
yeah, dude. Thank you, I appreciate that, and thanks again for being on here.
You bet.